Good afternoon, Ms. Enriquez. We haven't met before. My name is Rebecca Leckeros. I'm one of the lawyers representing Mr. Depp in this case. You grew up in Texas with your sister and your parents, right?
Correct.
And you were really close with Ms. Heard growing up?
We were.
And you're still close now, right?
We are.
And you love her?
Of course.
And your childhood, though, had some difficult moments, right?
It wasn't perfect.
Your father hit you and your sister at times, right?
Yes.
And your sister would protect you from that abuse when she could, wouldn't she?
We would protect each other, for sure.
And when you graduated from high school, you moved out to Los Angeles, right?
I did.
And your sister gave you a place to live in LA?
Yes.
And she helped support you?
In part, I also was working myself, and yeah.
And you're grateful to her for being there when you needed her, right?
Of course.
And just like she protected and cared for you, you want to protect and care for her, right?
And when I can, of course, but yeah.
You testified to having a great relationship with Mr. Depp when you first started dating your sister, right?
Correct.
And you thought of him as a brother?
Yes.
He called you sis?
Yes.
And you had affectionate nicknames for him too, didn't you?
A number of them, yes.
Yeah. And you testified that for a time you lived in the ECB penthouses with Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard.
That's correct.
And Mr. Depp owned those penthouses?
He did.
You didn't pay rent while you were living there, right?
No.
You didn't pay for any of the bills for the penthouses?
No. It's very generous.
And Rocky Pennington lived in one of those penthouses also, right?
She did.
And at some point, her boyfriend Josh Drew moved in, right?
Yes.
And Isaac Bruch lived in one of those penthouses too?
Yes.
You were living there, right?
No.
You didn't pay for any of the bills for the penthouses?
No. It's very generous.
And Rocky Pennington lived in one of those penthouses also, right?
She did.
And at some point, her boyfriend Josh Drew moved in, right?
Yes.
And Isaac Bruch lived in one of those penthouses too?
Yes.
And you know that he testified here that you call him your spirit animal, right?
I did not know that, but he's wonderful.
Yeah, you call him your spirit animal?
At one point I did, yes.
Yeah. You took trips with your sister and Mr. Depp also, right?
Occasionally.
You didn't pay for those either, right?
Nope, I did not.
During the course of Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard's relationship, you were frequently involved in their arguments, weren't you?
Yes.
In fact, you had a nickname, right?
Marriage counselor.
Yes. You often found yourself mediating disputes between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard, right?
Clearly not very well, but yes.
And when you were in that role of marriage counselor, you empathized with Mr. Depp, right?
Yes, on occasion.
Because you had a pretty good understanding of what he was going through?
It depended on the situation. Sometimes I could totally see from his perspective. Other times I saw it from her perspective.
Well, you'd been there with Ms. Heard before, right?
We're sisters. Of course we've argued.
And you knew what it was like to want to run away for days and do your own thing and not have Ms. Heard there fighting with you, right?
I think that's kind of taken out of context a little bit. I think more metaphorically. But yes, I have been in arguments with my sister.
And you have wanted to run away for days, right?
Sure.
And not have her there fighting with you?
Sure.
You talked a little bit about the incident in March 2013, right?
Which one?
That was the one before you went to the Keith Richards documentary set? And you were present with Mr. Depp at Orange that day?
I was.
Didn't you do cocaine with Mr. Depp that afternoon?
Yes. Yes.
And you said Mr. Depp's already intoxicated?
He was by the time I got there.
And he was fighting with your sister?
He wasn't doing much of anything. He was sat at the table. He was telling me about the fight that they had.
So he'd been fighting with your sister that day when you arrived?
That was my understanding.
And you said she had a puffy face?
Yes.
And despite all of that, you decided it was a good idea to do cocaine with Mr. Depp at that juncture?
I hadn't yet connected the dots. I hadn't yet understood what that meant or what that would do.
That was a yes? Yes, you took cocaine with Mr. Depp.
I
after all
did.
that?
Yes, I already said that.
You testified that you had suspicions that Mr. Depp was allegedly hitting your sister by some point in 2013, right?
Suspicions.
And notwithstanding that, in June 2013, you were actually joking with Mr. Depp about hitting your sister, right?
Regrettably over a text message, yes.
That you were encouraging him to hit her,
I was not literally encouraging him to hit her.
but you were joking about it.
Regrettably, yes. Again, I did not have an understanding fully of what that was. I never would have said that now, knowing what I know.
But that was around the time that you allegedly became aware that he was,
I don't
there were
know.
injuries on your sister that caused you to have suspicions.
I don't know if it was around the same time.
Turning to the staircase incident in March 2015, you testified that Mr. Depp allegedly hit you during that incident, right?
Yes.
But you aren't sure if that contact was even meant for you, right?
I honestly don't. I don't know what he was aiming for. My back was to him.
And you weren't injured during that incident, right?
No, I wasn't.
And you didn't, in October 2015, you were actually still trying to reconcile him and your sister when they were fighting, right?
Yes, I was asked to support. I was just trying to help what I thought they both wanted. I was just trying to trying my best to support them the way that I thought I could.
You still loved Mr. Depp at that point, right?
I did.
And you didn't think that he and your sister were past the point of no return, right?
What I thought was irrelevant at that point. Those two were in love and they were working very hard. They wanted to be together, it seemed like, so I just helped as best as I could. I don't know how else to describe it.
Your sister still wanted to be with Mr. Depp, right?
And she loved him.
And you didn't think they were past the point of no return?
I don't know what you mean by that exactly.
Okay. Let's take a look at Plaintiff's Exhibit 12.